to see you all here and to see Congressman Schiff here. I'm Barb Dehart. I'm excited. I'm so excited. I am from Indivisible Women of Nevada County, and let me just say, I am a proud Nevada County Democrat. I want to thank you all for being here with us this evening, and I want to make a special thank you shout out to my friend Carol Turner and Atara O'Connell, whose relentless pursuit of Mr. Schiff is the reason why he's here today. I would also like to thank Nevada County Democrats for the just tireless efforts that you all put in, we all put in, to ensure that democracy is safe in Nevada County. And in 2016, for turning Nevada County blue. Okay, now that I have your attention, I would like to begin tonight, as we do many community gatherings here in Nevada County, and that is with recognition of the tribal lands that we are on this evening. We recognize that these are ancestral homelands of the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe. That this land was taken repeatedly with no compensation or regard for the lives and the ways of the original people until they had no land left. That we are settlers here. We live, love, and work on the land that the Nisenan never ceded. We recognize the sovereignty of the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe despite the lack of federal recognition that they have received. And we also recognize that together we can amend the tragic legacy of the past. Okay, our first speaker tonight, this evening, is Heidi Hall. And before she joins us here on stage, I'd like to tell you a little bit about her for those 3 people in the audience who might not know. Heidi has been a Nevada County Supervisor for District 1 since 2017, and she's running for re-election in 2024. So when we vote, remember, we vote up and down the ballot. I've known Heidi since 2016, when I, like maybe some of you out there, decided that I needed to get involved in politics. What a time that was and has been. I was one of the women who founded Indivisible Women, which is a grassroots organization that sets out to inspire women to become more politically engaged in their communities. Now, we also believe that that kind of engagement can happen at any level. It literally can be in your morning prayers, if you say a prayer for your neighbor who's out walking and canvassing for a candidate. It can be donating money. It can be volunteering to text bank or to phone bank for a candidate. And if you'd like to be one of the people who runs for an election, it's absolutely 100% that too. Heidi is an example of a woman who has done just that. She stepped into the political arena and successfully ran, as I said, for Nevada County Supervisor, and since has worked really hard on issues like broadband and to provide services and housing for our unhoused population. She's always really been a friend to those whose voices need to be heard. Heidi's also worked to protect our public lands and to reduce the stress of our changing climate, something that in Nevada County we face every day. She's been a fierce advocate for the needs of our beautiful rural community to mitigate wildfires and to help improve our current crisis around fire insurance in our community. Yeah, absolutely. She has worked on these issues in a bipartisan fashion at the local, state, and national level, and she is here tonight. Please join me in welcoming Heidi Hall.
Thank you, Barb. Hand for our Indivisible Woman of the Year. Welcome, everyone, Nevada County and beyond, to this incredibly exciting event. I'm so thrilled that you're all here and that we have the indomitable Congressman Schiff here tonight as well. My name is Heidi Hall, and I have been Nevada County's District 1 Supervisor since 2017. And let me say, if there's ever been a time to be concerned about the sustainability of our democracy, the past 3 or 4 years has been it, has it not? And what a week we've had, with the filing of criminal indictments meant to fully provide accountability. We've been waiting a long time. It's all pent up. This democracy is ours. It is ours. And if it wasn't clear to our country before, it has been brought home immeasurably that our vote matters. And that it can't be overturned as long as democracy holds and our democratic institutions do their job to provide that accountability. We couldn't be more privileged tonight to have one of the most effective elected officials during this fraught time. From Stanford and Harvard law schools, to Assistant U.S. Attorney, to the California State Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives, Congressman Schiff has stood up for the American people. Yay. He has served on the House Foreign Affairs Committee, the House Appropriations Committee, and most critically, as I think we all know, chaired the House Intelligence Committee from 2019 to this year, where he served as the lead impeachment manager. Such an important effort. The findings produced by the consequential January 6th committee were critical and clearly led to these recent indictments. Congressman Schiff has been saving our democracy and ensuring accountability for decades, but never more so than in these past 2 years. I am honored and thrilled to introduce Congressman Adam Schiff. Please give him a very warm welcome.
Thank you so much. Wow, what a fabulous welcome. Thank you very much. And much nicer welcome on the inside than on the outside. Barb, thank you for your amazing leadership with Indivisible. The Indivisible chapters all over the state, all over the country have done such incredible work defending our democracy ever since that Women's March, which was much larger than that puny inauguration. And thank you. And Heidi, thank you for your extraordinary work on the County Board of Supervisors. Thank you for the beautiful introduction. I told Heidi, for the introduction, a lot of comparisons to Lincoln and Jefferson, but nothing over the top. I have to say, though, I was kind of surprised that when you mentioned my educational background, it didn't result in any booing, because Speaker Pelosi has this riff she likes to do now, where whenever anyone mentions the Ivy League, she will say, Josh Hawley went to Yale Law School. Ron DeSantis went to Harvard Law School. Ted Cruz went to Harvard Law School. Don't give me the Ivy League. I've had it up to here with the Ivy League. And then she'll turn to me and she'll say, no offense. It is such a pleasure to be with you. And Carol, I'm so delighted we ran into each other a couple months ago at the Democratic Convention. I'm so grateful that you encouraged me to come visit, and it is a thrill to be here. We are gathered today in a precarious time in our nation's history, when a would-be despot stands charged with multiple crimes and yet seems poised to be the Republican nominee for president. It is just astounding, isn't it? I mean, I keep coming back to something, and in the scheme of things, this is pretty minor, but nonetheless, the man was sitting in the Oval Office behind the Resolute desk, signing hush money payment checks to a porn star. How is is it possible that he's the leading candidate for president in one of America's great political parties? And that's probably the least of his transgressions. That may be the nicest thing you can say about the guy. She was apparently the only contractor who actually got paid. There are so many challenges we face, and one of the reasons I think that the ground was fertile for a demagogue like Donald Trump is that the economy still isn't working for millions of people. For millions of people in different parts of the state and the country, the problem today is not that people aren't working. Unemployment is at a historic low. The problem today is that people are working and they're still not making enough to get by. And so I think these challenges to our economy and to our democracy are really intertwined. And here in Nevada County, you understand better than anyone the importance of the third existential challenge we face besides our economy and our democracy, and that is our planet. And that is our planet. We can get everything else right, but if we don't get this right, then none of the rest is going to matter much at the end of the day. And at this particular moment in our history, we need a champion in the U.S. Senate, one who doesn't back down from bullies in the MAGA world or the corporate world, one who's been in the thick of the fight for our democracy, our economy, and our planet. And I am running for the U.S. Senate to be that champion. To be your champion. To be your champion. I want to be part of a durable Democratic majority in the House and in the Senate. And if we're going to be a durable Democratic majority, it means that we need to be able to compete and win in rural parts of the country. And you here in Nevada County hold a lot of the keys. You turned a red county blue. You did it. Now, you might know me as the guy that impeached Donald Trump. Or you might know me as the guy... I feel funny saying you're welcome. Or you might know me as the guy that served on the January 6th committee. And worked to expose his corruption for all to see, including the Justice Department. But before I talk more about the issues of the day, let me tell you, if I can, a little bit about me personally that you may not know. I've been married for 28 years, and my wife is named Eve. We are Adam and Eve. I know, she, I think, only went out with me as a curiosity. But if you were ever wondering whether Adam and Eve were Democrats, I can tell you with great confidence, yes, and they will always be Democrats. The snake, on the other hand, I'm pretty sure was a member of the other party. Eve and I have two wonderful kids. They don't have the names you might expect. They are Alexa and Elijah. One is in college and one graduated a couple years ago. So we have an empty nest, which my wife was completely ready for, even if I wasn't. But I got my start actually in Boston. I'm the son of a traveling salesman, and I was inspired by the Kennedys and their commitment to service. Now, I mentioned that I'm the son of a traveling salesman because my parents bought our first home for $18,000 on a handshake for about the amount that my father earned selling clothes. Now, imagine today trying to build a home or buy a home for the average income of a salesman and how impossible that would be. But that single salary was enough for us to live comfortably, for my brother and I to go to good public schools and to live in a safe neighborhood. We moved to the Bay Area in 1971 when I was 11, and like so many families, we were drawn to the Golden State by the promise of a better life. That was a time when millions of families were flocking to California to be part of something special. When people came here, they came because they believed in the California dream, and they wanted to chase that dream for themselves and for their kids. Now, my parents weren't rich, but they worked hard. My mother worked hard also. My father got out of the clothing business and ran a lumber yard, and I worked there too. I worked summers lugging around sacks of concrete, roofing materials, and sheets of plywood. In between college and law school, I even took a turn as a seasonal U.S. Forestry Service firefighter. And I'll tell you, there's nothing like doing that work to give you respect not only for fire, but for the firefighters who face that danger every day. Settling in Los Angeles, after law school, I took on the job of an assistant U.S. attorney. I took down a corrupt FBI agent turned spy for the Soviet Union, the first FBI agent ever convicted of espionage. He evidently had more confidence in the Kremlin than in our own intelligence agencies. Damn, that sounds familiar. I took on toxic dumpers and polluters, started the first federal environmental crimes unit in Los Angeles, prosecuted an oil company for illegally dumping oil in the ocean, and other polluters for smuggling hazardous waste across our border. I even took on international drug lords and never lost a case. Not because I was some Clarence Darrow, but because I charged the crimes I could prove, just like I believe Special Counsel Jack Smith. As a prosecutor, I fought against corruption and for justice and fairness and for the rule of law, and that is still my fight today. But I also realized that I wanted to address the root causes of crime, and for that I needed to get involved in the political process. So I ran for the state Senate, taking on a powerful Republican incumbent, and flipped a red seat blue. As a state senator, I helped write one of the first laws in the nation guaranteeing a patient bill of rights. I wrote legislation guaranteeing up-to-date textbooks in our schools, and along with Tony Cardenas, I wrote a massive new program to keep kids in school and out of jail. And I wrote a law resulting in a massive expansion of light rail in Southern California and more. I took on big corporations and powerful interests and the toxic right-wing media to get it done, because these were fights that really mattered. Then I ran for Congress and took on another powerful Republican incumbent, flipping another red seat blue, this time forever. And I got to work in Congress to improve the lives of my community, fighting climate change and investing in new green technology and jobs. I fought for universal health care and got the biggest expansion in healthcare access in generations over ferocious GOP opposition. I fought against tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires and for good-paying jobs, union jobs, and investments in our future. And I brought back resources to California to address some of our urgent priorities like homelessness and housing. And then I took on the biggest fight of my life against Donald J. Trump, a demagogue hell-bent on destroying our democracy and upending all the progress we have made. I took him on and his extreme MAGA supporters and the entire Fox misinformation machine. I made some pretty powerful enemies, but as Franklin Roosevelt once observed, there are times when you can judge a person by the enemies they have made. And by that standard, I'm doing pretty damn well. Kevin McCarthy and his band of MAGA Republicans even censured me for my work holding Trump accountable, something that I wear as a badge of honor. Tell you, I had two terrible epiphanies during the early Trump years. Well, probably a lot more than two, but I'm going to keep it to two. The first, and it seems quite intuitive now, but at the time it was really a shocking thing to realize about our country. But the first was that for the first time in my life, and maybe for the first time in anyone's life, the predominant threat to our democracy came from within. That there was nothing that Russia or China or Iran or North Korea could do to tear our country apart, to weaken our democracy more than the President of the United States had been doing. And the second epiphany, the second realization, which followed really from the first, is that none of that would have been possible without the willing enablement of so many Republican members of Congress. And I have to say, this was a bitter shock to me, because I had thought so much more highly of the people I served with. These were people that I respected, some I even admired, because I believed that they believed what they were saying. And as it would turn out, they didn't believe any of it, or if they did, none of it really mattered at the end of the day, so much as holding on to power or their jobs or maybe getting a better job in the Trump administration. None of it really mattered. I've thought a lot in the last several years about something the historian Robert Caro once said in an interview, when he said that power doesn't corrupt as much as it reveals. It doesn't always reveal us for our best, but it says a lot about who we are. And over the last several years, power has revealed a lot about the people I serve with. It has revealed Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger to be people of great courage. Conversely, it has revealed Elise Stefanik and Kevin McCarthy and so many others to be utterly craven. And it demonstrated, and sadly, tragically, but quite literally, that for every Liz Cheney and every Adam Kinzinger, there were 100 Elise Stefaniks and 100 Kevin McCarthys. My takeaway after 2 impeachments, an insurrection, and now 3 indictments is this. You can have the best written Constitution in the world, and I believe that we do. You can have the best written laws meant to constrain the worst impulses of human nature, and maybe we do. But none of that will be enough if people don't give meaning to their oath of office. If that oath isn't informed by ideas of right and wrong, and if people are unwilling to accept the basic truth, or even that there is something called fact, none of it will really work. Sadly, we live in an era where one of America's great political parties believes the truth is for liars and suckers. We live in a world in which a public servant like Anthony Fauci is made a villain, and a villain like George Santos is made a public servant. I'm very proud of the work we did on the January 6th committee to bring to the public light the multiple ways in which the last president sought to interfere with the transfer of power, sought to do something that no president in our history has done. And by the way, I love the parody that Saturday Night Live did of our committee. When the actor playing Liz Cheney says, people keep asking me, how did I develop such a spine of steel, such a tough inner core? Well, how do you think you would turn out if Dick Cheney had been reading you bedtime stories? But here's the thing. The prosecution of Donald Trump will really test our democracy. It will test a rule of law, a principle of the rule of law, that everyone is equal before the law. And as difficult as a test as that will be, it is a very necessary test. It is a very necessary test. Because the alternative to holding a president to account who attempts to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power is to confer a kind of immunity on a president. An immunity that would say, try, if you will, to stay in power when you lose, and if you succeed, you'll be a president for life. And if you fail, there will be no consequence. There is nothing more dangerous than that idea. Nothing more dangerous for that would-be demagogue, but for any other in the future. And so this is necessary, even as it is difficult. And I will tell you this also. We have an important opportunity next year, and more than opportunity, responsibility, to help the country turn the corner. And I say that because the Republican leadership has made it abundantly clear they will not drop Donald Trump because he's a liar. They're fine with that. They won't dump him because he's unethical. That doesn't bother them either. They won't dump him because he's a danger to our national security, as the whole Mar-a-Lago fiasco makes so abundantly clear. And I'm convinced they won't drop him even if he is a convicted felon. But we beat them in 2018, and we beat them in 2020, and we beat them again in 2022, and if we beat them in 2024, and God help us if we don't, they just may decide to dump him because he's a loser. Because he's a loser. If they don't, then they will be losers too. Not for the sake of our country, no, but maybe, just maybe, for the sake of their party, they will move on. They will return to being a party of a conservative ideology, or indeed, any ideology. Any ideology, a place where someone like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger once have a home. Because we need two healthy political parties, at least two, in this country. And right now, there is only one. Now, Donald Trump didn't come to power in a vacuum. He came to power like other autocrats around the world at a time of enormous economic disruption. Globalization, AI, and automation have changed and reshaped the workplace like never before. They've made it extraordinarily difficult for working people all over the country. And not just the changes in technology that transform the workplace, but also a concerted effort over decades by concentrated power in the hands of corporate America to marginalize labor, to make it more difficult to collectively bargain, to make it more difficult to fight for fair wages and good working conditions. Beginning in the 1970s, and for the first time in our history, we started to see that what had always been the case in America, that when the country prospered, when the country became more wealthy and its GDP grew, that prosperity was shared with the people who made it possible. But beginning in the 1970s, we started to see these two lines diverge, when the increasing prosperity of the country wasn't shared with working people. To the point today where we have these historic inequities and inequalities in terms of income and ability just to keep a roof over your head. Now, Joe Biden gets this. Joe Biden understands just how deeply intertwined our economy and our democracy truly are. And we did such great things in those first 2 years when we controlled the Congress. We did such great things. We passed an Inflation Reduction Act that was the most significant attack on climate change in our history. And Democrats did that. After 4 years of infrastructure week with no infrastructure, Democrats got the job done. After years of manufacturing jobs fleeing the country, we passed the CHIPS and Science Act to bring them back. Democrats did that. But there is so much more to be done. We have a Supreme Court that is not a conservative court. It is instead a reactionary and partisan court. A conservative court would have some respect for precedent. This court has none. It has nothing but an arrogant indifference to the American people. And what's worse, we have seen this reactionary court use the power it has to strip away the reproductive freedom of millions and millions of Americans. You can tell when a democracy is in trouble when you start losing your rights, not gaining them. Now, in the House of Representatives, I'm one of the leading authors of a bill to expand the size of the Supreme Court. They need a code of ethics. They need term limits. We need to expand the court to restore balance to that court. One of my colleagues on the Judiciary Committee recently told me, you know, Adam, you're the perfect advocate for an expanded Supreme Court. And then, like a mic drop, just walked away. without any explanation. But I suspect what they meant, and it brought me back to my days in the state legislature when I was on the state Senate floor one day, and the Republican leader, a guy named Jim Brulte, came up to me, and he said, "Adam, you're the worst kind of Democrat. You're the worst kind of Democrat." And I said, "Why is that, Jim?" And he said, "Because you're just as progressive as the rest, but you sound so damn reasonable." But I think if we're going to get people to hear our argument about the Supreme Court, we need to approach it in a way where people will listen.
Yes.
Now, the only thing people know about the Supreme Court and expanding the Supreme Court is that Roosevelt tried to pack the court and it was bad. But here's the thing. Packing the court is bad, and Mitch McConnell damn well did it. There's more than one way to pack a court, and he did it. He did it by withholding an appointment from Barack Obama, making the false argument that it was too soon before the election, an election that was almost a year away, and then in the most chokingly hypocritical fashion, jammed Amy Coney Barrett down the nation's throat while people were literally voting for Joe Biden. There have been canaries in the coal mine about the fragile state of our democracy. One of them was what Mitch McConnell did, that institution-destroying gambit that he did. And we can either just say we're going to accept it and live with it, or we can do something about it.
Yeah.
And I say we do something about it. I'm going to go to the Senate and do away with that filibuster and make sure we restore balance to the Supreme Court of the United States. Finally, let me say this. Let me put this, if I can, in the broader context of what's happening in the world. All of us in this room grew up in a post-World War II generation in which our freedoms were ever increasing. And increasing here at home and increasing around the world. We witnessed democracies being born. We witnessed people enjoying the right to practice their faith, the right to associate with whom they would, the right to speak, the right to love and marry the one they would. And I think we came to believe that somehow this was inexorable, that democracy was inexorable, that it was like the law of gravity. Or as Martin Luther King once said, that the moral arc of the universe may be long, but it bends towards justice. Until suddenly it wasn't bending towards justice. Suddenly we started losing rights, not gaining them. Suddenly we started to see the rise of autocrats around the world. Suddenly we started to see the rise of autocracy here at home. And we have learned that there is nothing inevitable about this. There's nothing inevitable at all. That if we're going to bend that arc towards justice, we all need to grab, hold, and pull it as hard as we can towards justice. We have learned just how fragile our democracy is. But I am here to tell you that we will get through this. This too shall pass. Our country is in crisis, and sometimes when you're in crisis, it is hard to see how it ends. Sometimes it is even hard to see if it will end. But this will pass. There will come a time, I promise you, when we look back and we say to ourselves, how in hell did that guy ever become president of the United States? What on earth were we smoking? But what we do in this moment will determine how quickly we get to that future. This is on us. As the indigenous people taught, as Barack Obama reminded us, we are the ones we have been waiting for. It is in our hands to steer the ship of state, to hand off a country and a planet that is worth our children's inheritance. I thank you for inviting me. God bless you all, and I would be so proud to have your support for the United States Senate. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Nevada County Democrats. Thank you for your warm invitation. Now let's